mountain screams. Stone shudders like wounded flesh, and the forges of Khazad-dûm go dark as a single note of pain rings through every pillar and hall. Lanterns sway, chains rattle. A pressure like a held breath crushes the lungs of all who dwell beneath the Red Horn. Far below the deepest delving, where the Balrog once slept in fire and shadow, something older opens an unseen eye and tastes the world that has disturbed its dream. If you love wandering down these darker paths of Middle-earth, tap that like button and join the company with a subscription. Tell me in the comments which realm you would stand for if this shadow rose: Khazad-dûm, Lothlorien, or Gondor. I read them as I shape the next journey. The dwarves do not yet know what they have done. On that day in the 29th year of Durin Zix, the great city of Khazad-dûm is alive with the sound of hammers and water and song. Light from mirrored shafts spills like molten silver across carved stairways. The air smells of iron, hot stone, and the faint resin of pine from distant timber brought through the west gate. In the deepest foundries, Master Navi, son of Narin, leans over a glowing seam of ore that no lawmaster has ever seen before. It is not mithril. It gleams with a light that is not wholly of this world, a pale, cold glimmer that seems to drink the red of the forge fire and give back a color that has no name in Khuzdul. The vein runs like a frozen river through black rock, pulsing faintly as if it remembers some rhythm that stone should not keep. Navi lifts his hammer, hesitates, and glances at the king. Durin Ziscas stands cloaked in sable and silver, his beard bound with mithril rings. His eyes are fixed on the strange ore, and in them burns both the hunger of his people and the burden of their history. Behind him, runes of warning carved by long-dead delvers line the walls, half effaced by fresh chisel marks. "Your fathers sealed this level," says Navi quietly, his voice nearly lost in the hiss of steam. "They named it the Black Floor. They sang of an echo that answered no song." Durin does not look away from the ore. "My fathers feared the dark," he answers. "We have learned its ways. Mithril runs out, trade thins, the elves turn inward, the men of the West grow proud. If there is new wealth in the roots of the world, it belongs to us." He reaches out, lays his hand on the cold seam. The stone trembles. A shiver runs through the mountain. Subtle as the first ripple in a glass of water, dust falls from high arches. Far above, in sunlit halls, children pause in their games, feeling a momentary vertigo, as if the floor has shifted beneath them. Navi pulls back. "My king," he says. "The rock moves." Durin smiles, but it is a tight, strained thing. "Then it lives," he says, "and what lives may be mastered." He lifts his own hammer and strikes. The sound that answers is wrong. Not the clean ring of metal on stone, but a dull, swallowing thud, as if the blow has fallen on something soft and deep. A note rises from the seam, too low to hear, but felt in the bones. The forge fires gutter. The air grows suddenly cold, and the breath of every dwarf steams white. Navi stumbles back, clutching his chest. In his mind, for an instant, he sees a void without walls or stars, a pressure like drowning in air, and a single thought that is not a thought, but a direction, down. The mountain screams. All across Khazad-dûm, dwarves drop their tools, clutching their heads. Bells swing wild in their towers, sounding without hands. The great lake of Khaled Zaram on the eastern side trembles, its clear surface rippling as if something vast has stirred beneath the roots of the peaks. Deep below, beyond any delving that dwarf or orc or Balrog has yet reached, something that is not of Arda in its wholeness shifts. It has no name that elves remember, for it was old when the first stars were kindled. It was not made by Melkor, though he found such things and whispered to them. It is one of the cold thoughts that fell with him into the world, a fragment of the void that clung to his ruin, buried and forgotten in the shaping of the mountains. It has slept through the wars of the powers, through the drowning of Beleriand, through the rising of Numenor and its fall. It has slept while dragons burned and Balrog slew and the world moved above like dust in a shaft of light. Now it is awake. In the dark, it reaches up. Durin Six does not die that day. He staggers, steadies himself on the haft of his hammer, and forces a breath into his lungs. Around him, his guards rise shakily. One has blood at his nose. Another stares at the oar with wide, unfocused eyes. "Seal this level," Durin rasps. Navi's head snaps up. "My king!" Durin's gaze is fixed on the seam, where hairline cracks now spider outward, faintly glowing with that same pale light. "Seal it," he repeats. "Stone and runes. No one is to come here again." Navi bows. Relief and fear warring in his chest. He does not ask why. He does not speak of the cold thought that brushed his mind. He does not yet know that it has marked him. 3 days pass. Khazad-dûm recovers. The tremor is spoken of as an oddity, a mood of the mountain. The older delvers mutter of ancient songs, but the younger laugh and return to their work. The forges blaze again. Trade caravans move along the Dimril Dale. Elves pass through the west gate with moonlight on their cloaks. Only Navi dreams of the seam. He wakes in the night hearing a slow, distant heartbeat, like a hammer striking once every hour. He finds his hand reaching for tools, for chisels, for the patterns of delving. He hums, without meaning to, low, wordless notes that match the pulse in the stone. His wife, Rhys, watches him with growing unease. "You work too deep," she says one morning, touching the grey that has crept into his beard. "Come up more often, see the stars, listen to the river." Navi smiles, but his eyes flick toward the lower tunnels. "The mountain calls," he says, and does not understand why the words make her flinch. Far above, in Lothlorien, Galadriel stands upon a flet and feels a shiver run through the malon beneath her feet. The golden wood is quiet. Autumn has brushed only the edges of its leaves with gold. The air smells of rain and distant snow on the mountains. Song drifts faintly from the talons, a weaving of voices older than the kingdoms of men. Celeborn steps to her side, grey-clad, his hair silver in the filtered light. "You feel it again," he says, not asking. Galadriel's eyes are fixed eastward, beyond the silver curtain of the celebrant, beyond the mists that cling to the Hithaglia. "The stone cried out," she answers, not as when Durin's bane awoke. This was colder, deeper, as if something that should never have been has remembered that it is. Celeborn's hand tightens on the rail. "The dwarves delve too greedily," he says. "They always have. They seek what they were made to love," Galadriel replies softly. Aulus fire burns in them still. Yet there are places in Arda where even the Valar do not look closely. The roots of the world remember the dark before Ea, if that dark stirs. Her voice trails off. For an instant, her gaze seems to pierce the mountains, the stone, the forgotten deeps, and touch something that recoils from her light with a hiss like steam on ice. She flinches. Celeborn turns sharply. What did you see? Galadriel closes her eyes. Not a flame. As with the Balrog, not a will that delights in ruin, as with Sauron. A hunger without desire, an emptiness that longs only to make all things as itself. She opens her eyes again, and there is a shadow in them that no mortal could name. Send word to Khazad-dûm, she says. Warn Durin. Tell him to seal his deeps and lay aside his greed. Celeborn's mouth tightens. He will not heed us. Perhaps not, Galadriel murmurs. But the warning must be given, for if this thing rises, it will not stop at the halls of the dwarves. In Khazad-dûm, the warning comes too late. Or perhaps it was always too late from the moment Durin's hammer fell. Na'vi returns to the sealed level on the 7th night. He does not remember leaving his bed. He does not remember walking through the sleeping city, past snoring guards and guttering lamps. He comes to himself standing before a wall of fresh-hewn stone, runes of warding carved deep and filled with gold. His hands are bloody. In them, he holds his tools. He stares at the wall. On the other side, something waits. There is no voice, no whisper in his mind, but he feels a pressure, a weight, like a great hand laid upon the other side of the barrier. It is patient. It is vast. It is curious. Na'vi lays his palm against the cold stone. The runes flare briefly, resisting. Then, one by one, they dim, not broken, but emptied, as if the meaning has been drawn out of them like breath from a lung. Na'vi gasps. The pressure increases. His heart hammers in his chest, matching a deeper beat beyond the wall. His thoughts blur. Memories drift away like smoke. There is only the stone and the thing that moves beneath it. He lifts his chisel. When the guards find him at dawn, the wall is broken. The seam lies open, wider than before, its pale light spilling into the passage like ghostly mist. Na'vi kneels before it, eyes vacant, his beard stiff with frost. His hands are raw to the bone, nails torn as if he has clawed at the rock with his bare fingers. He is humming. The sound is low, monotonous, a single note held without breath. It is wrong in the same way the first strike was wrong. It seems to eat the other sounds in the tunnel, swallowing the clink of armor, the murmur of voices, the drip of water, until there is only that one endless tone. Master Na'vi, one guard whispers, reaching for his shoulder. Na'vi turns his head. His eyes are black, not the black of pupil and iris, but a depthless absence, as if the sockets open onto a void that light cannot touch. For a heartbeat, the guard sees himself reflected in those pits, small and fragile and already forgotten. Na'vi smiles. Down, he says, in a voice that does not quite match the movement of his lips. Down to the quiet. The guard screams. In the days that follow, madness spreads through the lower halls. At first, it is subtle. Miners complain of headaches, of a pressure in their ears. Tools go missing and are found arranged in strange patterns. Spirals, circles, lines converging toward the deepest shafts. Songs falter as voices forget the next word, the next note, the reason they began to sing. During 6 orders, the lower levels closed. Work ceases in 3 of the 7 great delving zones. Runes of warding are carved. Priests of Mahal chant in the old tongues, their voices echoing through the stone. For a time, the oppression lessens. Then the dreams begin. Dwarves wake screaming of falling without end, of walking through caverns that have no walls, no roof, no floor, only a grey, weightless expanse where their own thoughts echo back to them, twisted and thin, Some dream of a great, pale shape coiled around the roots of the mountain, its surface smooth and glistening like polished bone, its bulk too immense to comprehend. None can say where its head lies. None can say if it has a head. In the dream, it opens. Not eyes, not a mouth, but a fissure, a crack in being itself, and from that crack pours not fire or shadow, but a cold that is not of winter, a silence that is not of peace. Those who dream wake with bleeding ears. Durin 6 calls his council. The great chamber of Mazarbul is lit with 100 lamps, their flames steady despite the unease in the air. Lords and captains gather in their finest mail, gold and mithril gleaming. Maps of the deeps lie upon the long stone table, marked with red and black ink. Navi is not among them. He sits alone in a small cell, his hands bound with chains of silver and steel, runes etched into every link. He hums under his breath. Sometimes he laughs, a dry, joyless sound. Sometimes he weeps. Always his eyes are empty. "We must abandon the lower city," says Lord Fundin, his voice harsh. "Seal it with fire and stone. Whatever stirs there, we cannot master it." "And go where?" demands Lord Lonnie. "We are Khazad. This is our home. We cannot flee like elves to some hidden wood. The upper halls are not enough to sustain our people. Our wealth lies in the deeps." "Our wealth is killing us," Fundin snaps. Durin raises a hand. "Enough," he says. His voice is weary, but it still carries the weight of kingship. "There is a third path. We do not yet know what we face. We must learn its nature. Knowledge is a weapon like any other." He turns to his right, where a cloaked figure sits apart from the dwarves, leaning on a staff. Gandalf the Grey has come to Khazad-dûm. His arrival 2 days before was a thing of chance, or so he said. He had been travelling through the Hithaglir, watching the movements of orcs and the whispers of darker things, when he felt the mountains scream. He came to the West Gate and was admitted with honour, for the dwarves remember his friendship in earlier years. Now he sits in the council chamber, his brows knit, his eyes shadowed. "You have walked in many deep places, Mithrandir," Durin says. "You have faced Balrogs, and worse. Tell us, what is this thing?" Gandalf's fingers tighten on his staff. "I have faced fire and shadow," he answers slowly. "I have seen the malice of Sauron and the despair of men. I have felt the weight of the ring and the will that made it. This is none of those." He looks down at the maps, at the inked lines that mean nothing to most, but to him suggest depths and pressures and fault lines in the bones of the world. "This feels older than the quarrels of the Valar," he says softly. "Older than the making of the sun and moon. There were things in the dark before A was spoken, not minds as we understand them. Not wills that choose, but tendencies, hungers. Places where the void clung to the new-made world like frost on glass." He lifts his gaze to Durin. "If you have woken such a thing, you cannot slay it as you would a dragon. You cannot reason with it as you might with a proud king. You can only contain it, or flee." A murmur runs through the council. Durin's jaw tightens. "We are not cowards," he says. "Nor are you fools," Gandalf replies, not unkindly. "But courage and folly wear the same face when they stare too long into the dark." He leans forward. "Take your people up. Seal every lower passage you can reach. Call your kin from the Iron Hills, from the Blue Mountains. You will need their strength. And send word to Lorien, to Imladris, to Gondor. This is not a dwarven matter alone." Durin bristles. you would have us beg aid from elves and men. In our own halls. Gandalf's eyes flash. I would have you live, he says. Pride is a poor shield against the void. For a moment, the chamber is silent. Then a voice speaks from the doorway. Down, says Navi. He stands in the threshold, chains hanging broken from his wrists. The runes on them are blackened, their lines melted as if by great heat or great cold. 2 guards lie senseless behind him, their faces pale. The council rises, hands going to weapons. Navi does not seem to see them. He walks forward, slow and steady, his bare feet leaving faint frost on the stone. His eyes are still black. His breath does not mist in the air. Down, he says again, and this time the word carries a weight, a pull that tugs at the bones of every dwarf present. For an instant, each of them sees in their mind a shaft plunging into endless depth. A promise of silence, of rest, of release from the burdens of craft and memory and grief. Fundin grips the table until his knuckles whiten. Lonnie's lips move soundlessly, forming an old prayer. Durin steps forward. Master Navi, he says, his voice steady by force of will. You are beloved in this house. Fight whatever holds you. Remember your name. Navi tilts his head, as if listening to something only he can hear. I remember, he says slowly. I remember stone. I remember song. I remember the feel of the chisel in my hand. But those are small things, little noises on the surface of a great quiet. He looks at Gandalf. You know, he says, you have heard the silence between the stars. Gandalf's face is very still. I have heard many things, he answers, but I am not its servant. Navi smiles faintly. You will be, he says. All will be. The fire will go out, the songs will end, the world will be as it was before sound, before light, before thought. It will be peaceful. He lifts his hands. The lamps flicker. The air grows heavy, thick, as if filled with invisible water. The sound of breathing becomes loud, laboured. The councillors clutch at their throats, gasping. Gandalf staggers, his staff striking sparks from the floor. Durin takes another step. Stop, he says. Navi's gaze fixes on him. You first, he says. The king of Khazad-dûm falls to his knees. His vision narrows. The faces around him blur. He feels the weight of stone above, the press of ages, the memory of every delving, every strike of the pick, every greed and hope and grief of his people. It is too much, too heavy. He feels the pull downward. Then a hand grips his shoulder, hot as a forge. Gandalf stands over him, his other hand raised, staff blazing with white light. Begone, the wizard says, and his voice is not the weary mutter of the grey pilgrim, but a command that remembers the music of the Ainur. You have no place in the children of Aule, Navi screams. The sound is not wholly his own. It is layered, a chorus of voices that never were, that might have been, that echo from the edges of hearing. The lamps flare, then explode, raining shards of glass. The pressure in the room spikes, then shatters like a snapped bowstring. Navi collapses. The blackness drains from his eyes, leaving only grey shot through with red. He blinks up at the vaulted ceiling, at the anxious faces leaning over him. Durin, he whispers, forgive me. Then he dies. Silence falls. Gandalf lowers his staff, his shoulders sagging. Sweat beads on his brow. He looks older than he did an hour before. Durin rises slowly, helped by Fundin and Lonnie. Is it done? The king asks. Gandalf looks at Navi's body. No, he says. This was only a finger. The hand still lies below, and it has now tasted us. In the weeks that follow, Khazad-dûm becomes a fortress under siege from within. Passages are sealed, runes are carved, priests chant day and night. The lower city is abandoned, its markets and forges left silent. Families move into upper halls, crowding the once spacious chambers. The sound of children's laughter grows thin. Durin sends messengers. One goes west, through the Red Horn Pass, to seek Elrond in Imladris. Another goes south along the Great River to Gondor, where Steward Ecthelion II rules in the waning days of his strength. A third goes into the Golden Wood. The messenger to Lorien is an old dwarf named Bifrak, whose beard is white as snow and whose eyes have seen 3 kings crowned. He walks beneath the golden boughs with unease, feeling the weight of elven gazes on him like shafts of light. The air smells of leaves and distant rain, of something green and ancient that has never known the forge. Galadriel meets him on a wide talon, Celeborn at her side. Bifrak bows, awkward but sincere. "Lady of the Golden Wood," he says, his Khuzdul accented Sindarin thick. "My king sends greetings and a plea. Something has woken in our deeps. Mithrandir says it is older than the world. We cannot fight it alone." Galadriel's face is grave. "We have felt it," she says. "The shadow in the stone, the unmaking that stirs. It is not of Sauron, though he would delight in its work. It is a hole in the music. A note that cancels sound." Bifrak frowns. "Can you fight such a thing?" Galadriel's gaze turns eastward to the mountains. "Perhaps," she says, "with time, with strength, with sacrifice. But hear me, son of stone. If it rises fully, it will not be a battle of swords and spears. It will be a battle of wills, of songs, of the very pattern of the world. And in such a battle, many who stand will not return." Bifrak squares his shoulders. "We do not fear death," he says. Galadriel looks at him sadly. "You should fear the death of meaning," she replies, "for that is what this thing hungers for." She sends word to Elrond, to Círdan at the Grey Havens, to Thranduil in the north. She sends word even to Saruman in Isengard, though she trusts him less than she once did. In Minas Tirith, Ecthelion too receives the dwarven messenger in the tower hall. He's an old man, his hair white, his back bowed, but his eyes are keen. Denethor, his son, stands beside him, stern and silent, already shadowed by the weight of the future. The messenger bows low. "Steward of Gondor," he says, "Durin of Khazad-dûm sends warning and a call. Something stirs in the deeps beneath the misty mountains. Mithrandir counsels that it threatens all free folk. My king asks for counsel and aid." Ecthelion's fingers drum on the arm of his chair. "We have our own shadows," he says. "Mordor stirs. The enemy gathers strength. How are we to send warriors into the dark under the mountains when our borders are pressed?" Denethor's gaze is fixed on the messenger. "What exactly is this threat?" he asks. "Orcs? A dragon? Another of the Balrogs?" The messenger hesitates. "It is none of these," he says. "It is older. It speaks without words. It makes men and dwarves forget themselves. Mithrandir says it is a fragment of the void itself." Denethor's mouth tightens. "The void is outside the circles of the world," he says. "If this is some phantom of elvish dread, let the elves handle it. Gondor stands against Sauron. That is burden enough." Ecthelion glances at his son, then back at the messenger. "Tell Durin that we will send what aid we can," he says. "Perhaps some of our lawmasters, perhaps some captains, but we cannot spare many swords. Our eyes are fixed eastward." The messenger bows, disappointment hidden by courtesy. When he is gone, Denethor speaks. "Father," he says, We cannot afford to be drawn into every shadow that Mithrandir chases. He plays a long game, but Gondor bleeds for it. Ecthelion sighs. Perhaps, he says. Yet I fear that if we ignore this, the price may be greater than we know. The world is not so wide that a wound in its bones will not reach us. In Isengard, Saruman the White receives Galadriel's message with raised brows. He sits in his Tower of Orthanc, surrounded by scrolls and devices of his own making. The Palantir lies shrouded at his side, though his hand rests near it as if by habit. An echo of the void in the deeps, he murmurs. How very interesting. He paces, his white robes whispering over the stone. A hunger that is not will, a silence that devours song. Such a thing could unmake the works of Sauron. It could swallow his shadow as easily as the light of the elves, if one could but direct it, channel it. He smiles, a thin, cold curve. Tell the lady of the golden wood, he says to the raven that waits on his sill, that I will come when I may. I am engaged in matters of the utmost import. In the meantime, let the grey wanderer exhaust himself in the dark. There will be time enough to sweep up the pieces. The raven flaps away, bearing a courteous, empty reply. Saruman turns to the Palantir. In the deeps of Khazad-dûm, he whispers, a new power stirs. Do you feel it, Sauron? Does it trouble your designs? He uncovers the stone. Far to the east, in the Black Land, in the high tower of Barad-dûr, the eye turns. Sauron has felt it. At first, he thought it some ploy of the Valar, some subtle working of Ulmo or Mandos, for the tremor in the world had the flavor of those distant powers. But as he stretched his will into the mountains, seeking to discern this new disturbance, he recoiled. It was not a mind. It did not answer his call, did not push back with malice or pride. It did not even seem to recognize him as anything more than a brief, flickering pattern in the stone. When he reached for it, his thoughts thinned. For an instant, his great design, his careful webs of fear and domination, his hatred and his hunger, all seemed small, meaningless, like scratches on a vast blank wall. There was a coldness there that made even his own cruelty seem warm by comparison. He pulled back. Now he watches. If this thing rises, it will threaten his dominion. It will threaten everything, but it may also weaken his enemies. It may drive elves and dwarves and men into despair and madness. He smiles, a lidless, burning curve. Let it wake, he thinks. Let it eat. I will endure. He begins to send more orcs into the misty mountains, not to fight, but to watch, to dig, to die screaming if need be. Their minds are small. Their loss is nothing. Through them, he will taste the changing of the stone. In Khazad-dûm, the war of wills begins. It is not like any war the dwarves have fought. There are no clear lines, no banners, no drums. There are only songs and silence, memory and forgetting. At first, the attacks come in dreams and whispers. A delver in the upper levels suddenly lays down his tools and walks toward a sealed shaft, eyes empty. A child stands at the edge of a deep cistern, staring into the black water as if it calls her name. A priest in the great hall of Mahal forgets the words of the oldest prayer mid-chant and begins to hum that low, endless note. Each time, the dwarves drag the entranced away, bind them, sing around them until the spell breaks. Each time, it takes longer. Gandalf walks the halls, staff in hand, muttering countercharms in tongues older than the mountains. He sleeps little. He eats less. He feels the thing below testing the walls of the world like a tongue probing a cracked tooth. One night, as he stands on a high balcony overlooking the endless stair, he feels a presence at his side. "Do you tire, O Lorin?" Galadriel's voice is soft, though she is not there in flesh. He closes his eyes. "You come in thought," he says, "as you did once in Valinor." "The distance is shorter now," she replies. "The dark between is thinner. The thing beneath you gnaws at more than stone." He leans on the rail, looking down into the abyss. "I do tire," he admits. "This is not like facing a Balrog. There is nothing to strike, nothing to burn. It is like holding back the sea with a broom." "Then do not stand alone," Galadriel says. "We come. Elrond travels even now toward your gate. I prepare what strength I can. Songs woven in Aemon may yet bind a fragment of the void." Gandalf snorts softly. "Even in the face of the unmaking of all things, you speak of songs." "What else are we?" she answers. "We are notes in the music. This thing is a hole in the song. To mend it, we must sing louder and with more hearts." He feels her withdraw, her thought returning to her golden wood. He looks down again. Far below, in the darkness, something stirs. It is not a shape, not as eyes would see, but a lessening. A place where the outlines of the stair, the walls, the very air seem thinner, as if reality itself is stretched. He tightens his grip on his staff. "Not yet," he murmurs. "Not while we have breath." Elrond arrives at Khazad-dûm with a small company of elves and men. Among them is a young captain of Gondor, a man named Thorongil, whose true name is Aragorn, though few in the White City know it. He has travelled north from Gondor at Gandalf's secret urging, leaving behind Ecthelian's service for a time. He looks up at the west gate with awe. The doors of Durin stand open, their mithril lines gleaming faintly in the starlight. The lake before them is still, black as obsidian. The air smells of stone and cold water. "Speak, friend, and enter," Elrond says softly, reading the inscription. Aragorn glances at him. "And if the friend is something that devours words?" he asks. Elrond's mouth tightens. "Then we must make the words stronger than the hunger," he replies. They are admitted with honor, though the faces of the dwarves are drawn, their eyes shadowed. Durin Sixk greets Elrond in the great hall, his beard more grey than when they last met, his shoulders bowed. "You come late," Durin says, though there is no real reproach in his voice. "I come as swiftly as I may," Elrond answers. "The world is wide, and its wounds are many." They clasp forearms, ancient enmity softened by shared dread. Gandalf joins them, his face lighting with weary relief at the sight of his old friend. "Good," he says. "We will need every voice." They gather in the deepest safe hall, just above the sealed levels. Elves, dwarves, men, and a single Maya stand together, their breaths fogging in the chill air. The stone around them hums faintly with that low, endless note, like a distant drum. Elrond lays his hand on the wall. "It is like touching the edge of a tomb that has no body," he says, "a grave dug for meaning itself." Durin shivers. "What can we do?" he asks. "We can weave a net," Elrond says. "We can bind it where it lies, strengthen the walls of the world around it. We cannot unmake it. That is beyond us. But we can make its prison tighter." Galadriel's voice comes again, faint but clear in the minds of those who have known her. "I am with you," she says. "In thought, in song. Others join me. Círdan at the Havens, Glorfindel in Imladris, even some in the west who still watch our fading light." Gandalf lifts his staff. "Then let us begin," he says. They sing. It is not a song that any minstrel would remember, for it has no words in any tongue of elves or men. It is a weaving of tones, of pulses, of harmonies that echo the first music of the Ainu in faint reflection. It is a declaration. This is, and shall be, and has meaning. The stone listens. For a time, the low hum of the thing below falters, drowned in the rising tide of their song. The air warms. The walls seem to thicken. The pull downward lessens. Dwarves in the upper halls feel their headaches ease. Children laugh again. The dreams of falling grow fewer. In Lothlorien, Galadriel stands upon her highest flet, her hair streaming in an unseen wind, her eyes closed. Around her, elves stand in circles, their voices lifted. The golden wood hums with power. In Imladris, Glorfindel's clear tenor soars above the river, his bright hair aflame in the dusk. In Mithlond, Círdan's deep voice rolls like the sea. Even in Valinor, on a far white shore, a few of the lesser Ainur pause and listen, and then add their subtle strength to the distant harmony. For 3 days and 3 nights they sing. On the 4th day, the thing below answers. It does not sing back. It does not rage, as Morgoth once did when defied. It does not lash out with fire or shadow. It simply widens. The low hum becomes a vibration that can be felt in the teeth, in the marrow of bones. The stone around the sealed shafts begins to crack, not from pressure, but from absence, as if the bonds that hold matter together are loosening. In the great hall, a pillar suddenly thins. It does not break, it does not crumble. It becomes less there, its edges blurred, its weight diminished. Dust falls from the ceiling. Dwarves cry out, scrambling away. Gandalf staggers. "It is not pushing against us," he gasps. "It is pulling the ground out from under us." Elrond's face is pale. "It is learning," he says. "It is adapting. Our song shows it where the pattern is strong. It eats around it." Galadriel's thought voice trembles. "We cannot hold this forever," she says. "Our strength wanes. Mortals tire. Even the Eldar are not what they were." In the depths, the thing stirs more fully. It is vast. It is not a creature, not as the children of Ilúvatar understand creatures. It has no limbs, no organs, no mind that thinks in words. It is a field, a region of unmaking, a knot of the old void caught in the net of Arda's being. As it wakes, it remembers nothing, for there is nothing to remember. It senses only difference, the dense, teeming pattern of the world around it, full of boundaries and meanings and names, and its own perfect absence of all those things. The difference is pain. It moves to erase it. The cracks spread. In the lowest sealed hall, stone turns grey, then translucent, then gone, leaving a smooth, curved surface that is not quite emptiness, but something like a scar in reality. Tools left there vanish. Runes carved toward are simply not. A dwarven guard, too slow to flee, steps into one of the thinning patches. He does not scream. He does not have time. His foot, his leg, his hip pass into the region of unmaking, and where they should be, there is only a faint distortion, like heat over a road. His body falls forward, the upper half still in the world, the lower half not. For a heartbeat, his eyes meet those of his comrades. Then they go blank. His memories, his loves, his fears, his very name unravel in an instant, their pattern erased. His flesh follows, not rotting, not burning, simply ceasing to have ever been. His comrades stagger back, faces white. One of them, a young dwarf named Fra, drops to his knees, retching. "He was there," he gasps. Then he was not, and I cannot remember his face. Mahal, save us, I cannot remember his face. The thing grows. It flows upward, not like water, not like smoke, but like the spreading of a stain. Where it touches stone, stone thins. Where it touches air, air stills. Sound dies in its presence. Light bends away. In the great hall, the pillars begin to fade. Panic spreads. Dwarves run, shouting, their voices oddly muffled. Mothers clutch children. Old warriors grip their axes, though there is nothing to strike. The great bell of Khazad-dûm tolls, its deep notes swallowed before it can fully form. Durin Six stands on the steps of his throne, his face carved from granite. Up, he commands. All of you, to the uppermost halls, to the east gate, to the west gate. Take only what you can carry. Leave the rest. The mountain is lost. His words fall like hammers. For an instant, the dwarves hesitate. Leave Khazad-dûm? Leave the city of their fathers, the work of ages, the pride of their people? It is unthinkable. Then a section of the ceiling simply is not. Cold air rushes in from a shaft that did not exist a heartbeat before. Dust swirls. A lamp falls and vanishes before it can strike the floor. The hesitation breaks. They run. Gandalf, Elrond, and Aragorn stand together at the edge of a widening patch of nothing in the lower hall. The unmaking has eaten through 3 walls, revealing tunnels that now end in smooth, curved scars. The air around the boundary shimmers faintly. A dropped stone does not bounce. It does not fall. It simply ceases. We cannot hold it here, Elrond says, his voice tight. We must buy them time to flee, Aragorn says. His hand is on his sword, though he knows it is useless against this. Gandalf's eyes blaze. There is one thing we have not yet tried, he says. He steps forward, staff raised. Olorin, Elrond warns. Gandalf does not answer. He plunges the tip of his staff into the very edge of the unmaking. For an instant, nothing happens. Then the world twists. Gandalf's mind, which has known the light of the 2 trees, the halls of Manwë, the laughter of Nienna, touches the pure absence at the heart of the thing. There is no hatred there, no malice. There is no recognition of him at all. He is a ripple in a pond that it does not know exists. His memories, his loves, his fears, his very sense of self all begin to unravel, not pulled apart by force, but dissolving in the solvent of nothing. He sees, in that instant, a future where all of Arda is like this. No stars, no seas, no mountains, no songs. No Sauron, no Valar, no hobbits in their green hills. Only a smooth, endless, unmarked expanse of non-being. He screams. The scream is not of pain, but of refusal. No. The word is small, a speck of dust in the void. But it is a word. It is meaning. He remembers the music. He remembers sitting in the far back of the hall of Ilúvatar, shy and quiet, listening as others sang the great themes. He remembers weeping when Melkor's discord marred the harmony. He remembers the moment when Ilúvatar wove even that into a greater, deeper beauty. He remembers that the void is not the final word. He pours that memory, that certainty into his staff, into the point where it touches the unmaking. Light flares, not the white fire of lightning, not the red of molten stone, but a soft, golden radiance, like the mingled light of Lorelin and Telperion. It shines from the tip of the staff, pushing back the grey, thickening the air, restoring weight. For a heartbeat, the unmaking recoils. It does not feel pain, but it encounters something it cannot immediately erase, a pattern too deep, woven into the very foundations of the world by Ilúvatar himself. Gandalf staggers back, gasping. His hair is whiter than before. Lines have deepened around his eyes. He has burned years of his strength in that single touch. But the spread of the thing slows. "It can be held," he pants. "Not stopped, not undone, but held, bound, if enough of us stand." Elrond nods, understanding. He raises his hands, his voice rising in a new song, one that does not merely affirm being, but calls upon the one beyond the world. It is a dangerous song, for the Valar do not lightly look upon such appeals. But this is no ordinary threat. In Lothlorien, Galadriel feels the shift. She opens her eyes, tears on her cheeks. "So be it," she whispers. "If we must spend what remains of our grace to hold this wound closed, we will." She lifts her hands, and the golden wood blazes with light. In Valinor, on the green slopes of Tanicatil, Manwë pauses. He feels the tug at the edges of Ae, the strain in the music. He hears the small, desperate voices of his younger siblings, of the children of the Maya who once walked in his halls as a quiet, thoughtful spirit. He looks to Ilúvatar. There is no answer in words. There is, instead, a memory. The three themes, the discord, the greater beauty. The sense that even this, even a fragment of the void gnawing at the world, is not beyond the scope of the song. But the song must be sung. Manwë rises. He does not go himself. The Valar have long withdrawn from direct intervention, and their coming in power would tear the world as surely as any wound. But he turns his thought, his will toward Middle-earth, lending strength to those who stand there. Light deepens around Gandalf's staff. Elrond's song grows richer, layered with harmonies that no elf has sung since Cuiviénen. Galadriel's voice, though distant, threads through it like silver. The unmaking slows further. It is not defeated. It still gnaws at the stone, at the air, at the edges of thought. But its spread is checked, its hunger blunted. It curls inward, coiling around itself, seeking weaker places to seep through. In the great halls above, the dwarves flee. They move in ordered chaos, for even in panic the Khazad are disciplined. Treasure is abandoned. Great works of craft are left on anvils. The sound of boots on stone is a thunder. Rhys, Navi's widow, stumbles as she carries her young son, Kili, in her arms. She pauses on a high bridge, looking back. Below, the lights of Khazad-dûm flicker. The glow of forges, the warm lamps of homes, the silver shafts of mirrored sunlight, all seem dimmer, as if a great hand is cupped over the city. "Do not look," says Bifrak, taking her elbow. His old face is grim. "Remember it as it was." "I cannot," she whispers. "Already I cannot remember the sound of Navi's hammer, the shape of his hands. It is slipping." Bifrak's grip tightens. "Then remember this," he says. "He died fighting it. He died himself. That is more than many will manage." She nods, tears blurring her sight, and turns away. At the west gate, the first dwarves emerge into the open air. They blink in the sunlight, stunned, as if they have been reborn. The smell of pine, of river, of wind is almost overwhelming after the close humming stone. Some fall to their knees, pressing their hands into the earth, feeling the living soil. Lorien's scouts wait in the trees. They watch as the dwarves spill out, a stream of mail and beards and burdened backs. They see the fear in their eyes, the loss. One of them, an elf named Rúmil, turns to his captain. "I never thought to see Durin's folk driven from their halls," he says softly. His captain, Haldir, shakes his head. "Pray we do not see worse," he answers. At the east gate, the scene is much the same. Dwarves pour into the Dimril Dale, their voices a low, stunned murmur. The mirror of Keled reflects the sky, untroubled, though if one looks closely, one might see a faint distortion at its depths, like a bruise beneath clear skin. Durin 6 stands on the last step of the gate, looking back into the dark. The low hum is louder here, a constant pressure in his ears. He raises his hand. "For Khazad Dûm," he says. "For our fathers. For all we leave behind." He lets his hand fall. "Seal it." Dwarves move with grim efficiency, rolling great stones into place, setting charges of black powder, carving runes. The gates that have stood open for ages, welcoming trade and friendship, are closed. With a final thunderous crash, the west gate and east gate of Khazad Dûm are sealed. Inside, in the lower halls, Gandalf, Elrond, and the few who remain with them stand at the edge of the unmaking. They have held it, barely. The region of nothing now fills the deepest delvings, a vast, irregular cavity in the bones of the mountain. Its edges shimmer, a boundary between being and not being. The stone around it is cracked, strained, but still there. Gandalf sways. "You must go," Elrond says. "If you fall here, the world will lose more than it can afford." Gandalf shakes his head. "I will not leave while it still presses," he says. "I can anchor it for a time. Give the dwarves a chance to find a new home. Give you all a chance to prepare." Aragorn steps forward. "I will stay with you," he says. Gandalf looks at him, and in his eyes is a sorrow deeper than the deeps of Khazad Dûm. "No," he says. "Your road runs another way. You have a kingdom to claim, a war to fight. This thing is not your doom." Aragorn's jaw tightens. "What good is a kingdom if the world is eaten?" he demands. Gandalf smiles faintly. "Then win your war swiftly," he says. "For the world will need a king who remembers why it is worth saving." Elrond lays a hand on Aragorn's shoulder. "Come," he says. "We will do what we can from without. Songs can be sung from many places." Reluctantly, Aragorn turns away. Gandalf stands alone at the edge of the unmaking, his staff planted firmly in the stone, its tip pressed against the shimmering boundary. He closes his eyes. He sings. It is not a song of power, not as the world would reckon it. It is a simple tune, one he learned long ago in the gardens of Lorien, sitting by a small stream. It is about sunlight on water, about the sound of leaves, about the laughter of children. He pours into it every memory he has of small, good things. The unmaking presses against him. It does not understand the song. It does not hate it. It simply moves to erase it, as it erases all patterns. But the song is not only in his mind. It is in the stone, in the air, in the very fabric of Arda, woven there by the music at the beginning. It cannot fully erase that. It can only strain it, so the balance holds. Above, the world changes. The dwarves of Khazad Dûm become wanderers. They move east to the Iron Hills, to Erebor, to the Blue Mountains. They carry with them what lore they can remember, what treasures they could bear. But there are gaps. A master smith sitting at his new forge in Erebor stares at a half-finished design and realizes he cannot recall how his father taught him to shape the inner curves. A child asks her mother to tell her the story of Durin's awakening at Keled, and the mother falters, the details slipping away like water through her fingers. Songs are shortened, names are lost, a sense of thinning hangs over them. In Lothlorien, Galadriel walks among the golden trunks, her hand trailing over bark. She feels it there too. The leaves are as bright as ever. The air is as sweet. But at the very edges of her perception, the world feels frayed, as if threads have been pulled from the tapestry. She looks eastward. "We have bought time," she says to Celeborn, "but at a cost. Gandalf cannot hold forever. The wound remains. It will ache until the end of days." Celeborn's face is grave. "And if he falls?" he asks. She closes her eyes. "Then the unmaking will rise again," she says. "Perhaps not swiftly. Perhaps it will seep upward, slowly, over years, over centuries. But it will not stop until it has eaten all." In Mordor, Sauron watches. He feels the strain in the world. The places where his own works have been subtly weakened by the pressure of the unmaking. Some of his lesser spells unravel. Some of his orc-breeding pits produce things that are not quite right. Their bodies blurred, their minds empty. He is not pleased, but he is patient. The dwarves are scattered. The elves spent their strength in song. The Maiar exhaust themselves, holding a wound closed. Men are left to face him with fewer allies, fewer counsels. He turns his gaze westward. The One Ring still lies lost. He begins to search more intently. In Isengard, Saruman paces. He has felt the shift as well, the slowing of the unmaking's spread. He has seen, in his palantir, brief glimpses of the scar in the mountain, a vast, shimmering cavity, a place where his sight slides off as if repelled. He is frustrated. He had hoped the thing would rise unchecked, that it would tear at the foundations of the world, forcing the Valar to intervene, giving him a chance to play one power against another. Instead, Gandalf and the elves have bound it, at least for now. "Always he meddles," Saruman mutters. "Always he chooses the small, the humble, the slow path." He looks at his growing army of Uruk-hai, at the furnaces he has kindled. "Very well," he says. "Let him hold his little wound. I will tear at the world from another angle." The War of the Ring comes. In this timeline, it is both the same and not. Bilbo still finds the ring. Frodo still inherits it. Gandalf still suspects, still seeks answers, still rides in haste between the Shire and Gondor and back. But he does so, bearing an extra burden. At times, as he speaks with Frodo in the Shire, as he laughs at Merry and Pippin's antics, as he smokes with Aragorn at the Prancing Pony, he feels a tug at the back of his mind. The unmaking presses. He has set anchors, subtle spells and songs that allow him to move away from Khazad-dûm without the wound widening. But the strain never fully leaves him. He sleeps less. He laughs more rarely. There is a tightness around his eyes that even hobbits notice. "Are you well, Gandalf?" Frodo asks once on the road. Gandalf smiles. "As well as one can be when the world itself aches," he says. "Do not trouble yourself, my dear hobbit. There are larger matters at hand." He does not tell Frodo that in his dreams he sometimes sees the smooth, shimmering boundary in the dark, feels the slow, patient hunger pressing against his staff. At the Council of Elrond, the unmaking is not mentioned. There is enough dread in the room already. The ring, Sauron's armies, the fall of the North, the weakness of Gondor. To speak of a wound in the foundations of the world would be to break what courage remains. Aragorn, though, feels its shadow. When Boromir speaks of Gondor's need, of the White City standing alone, Aragorn's gaze flicks briefly eastward, beyond Mordor to the mountains. "We stand upon a world that is already cracked," he thinks, "and yet we must fight as if it were whole." He chooses to claim his lineage anyway. He chooses to bear the weight. The Fellowship sets out. Their path through the Redhorn Gate is blocked by snow, as in the other tale. But when they turn toward Moria, Gandalf hesitates. he feels the wound. It is quiescent for now, bound and anchored. But it is there, a hollow in the stone, humming faintly. He knows that if he goes in, the strain upon him will increase. He knows that if he falls there, the unmaking may surge. But the pass of Caradhras is closed. The gap of Rohan is watched by Saruman. Time is short. "We must risk it," he says. In the dark of Moria, the company walks through a tomb that is not yet filled with orcs and trolls, but with absence. The great halls are empty, not of bodies, but of history. "Here was once the market of the second level," Gandalf says, his voice echoing. "Here the dwarves traded with elves and men. There was a fountain there, with a statue of Durin." There is nothing. The stone is smooth, unmarked. There are no carvings, no worn steps, no soot stains from old fires. It is as if no one ever walked there. Frodo shivers. "It feels wrong," he whispers to Sam, "like a story that someone has rubbed out of a book." Sam nods, his hand on his sword. "I do not like it, Mr. Frodo," he says. "I do not like it at all." They pass through the hall of Mazarbul. There is no book. There is no tomb of Balin, no record of the last stand of dwarves against orcs. There are no orcs at all, for the unmaking has eaten away the lower tunnels where they would have come from. The company walks through a silence that is not peace. At the bridge of Khazad-dûm, there is no Balrog. There is instead a shimmer. The chasm yawns before them, deep and black. The narrow bridge arches over it, perilous. At its far end, the air seems to blur, as if seen through heat. Gandalf stops. He feels the unmaking, closer than he has felt it since he first stood against it. It presses against his mind, recognizing in its non-recognition a pattern it has strained before. Aragorn steps up beside him. "What is it?" he asks. Gandalf's face is pale. "The wound," he says. "The place where the world is thin." Frodo swallows. "Can we cross?" he asks. Gandalf grips his staff. "I can hold it," he says. "For a time. But you must move swiftly. Do not look down. Do not think about it." He steps onto the bridge. The air shimmers more violently. His staff flares, golden light pushing back the blur, thickening the space before him. Each step is an effort, as if he walks not on stone, but on the edge of an idea that could vanish if doubted. The others follow, single file. Frodo feels the press of nothing on either side, not just the physical drop, but the sense that if he falls, he will not hit anything. He will simply cease. Sam's hand brushes his back, steadying. "Do not look," Sam mutters. "Do not look. Do not think. Just walk." Halfway across, the unmaking surges. It recognizes the staff, the song, the stubborn pattern that has held it in check for decades. It presses not with anger, but with persistence. Gandalf staggers. The bridge trembles. Stones at the far end thin, their edges blurring. "Run!" Gandalf shouts. They run. Aragorn and Boromir lead, their boots pounding the stone. Legolas moves light as a leaf. Gimli runs with surprising speed, his face set. The hobbits scamper, hearts in their throats. Gandalf lags. The unmaking pulls at him, like mud at his boots, like a tide at his ankles. His staff burns in his hand, drawing on reserves of strength he did not know he had. He reaches the far end as the last stones begin to thin. He turns. The unmaking surges again. For an instant, he sees two futures. In one, he steps back, retreats with the others, sealing the wound behind him, leaving it to gnaw slowly at the mountain, contained for a time. In the other, he steps forward, plunges his staff deeper into the boundary, anchoring it more firmly, but at the cost of himself. He thinks of Frodo. He thinks of the ring. He thinks of a small hobbit standing alone before the fires of Mount Doom, needing every ally, every bit of grace the world can offer. He thinks of the wound in the mountain and of the slow, inevitable spread if left unchecked. He makes his choice. "Go on!" he cries. "Fly, you fools!" He steps forward. The staff plunges into the heart of the shimmer. Light explodes. The bridge behind him vanishes. The company is thrown to the ground as a wave of force ripples through the stone. Dust billows. The sound of the mountain groaning echoes like thunder. When the air clears, there is no sign of Gandalf. There is only a smooth, curved surface where the bridge once joined the far side, a scar in the rock that hurts the eyes to look at. Frodo sobs. Aragorn closes his eyes. Grief and fury warring in his chest. "He is gone," Boromir says, his voice rough. Aragorn shakes his head. "Not gone," he says. "Spent, given. He has anchored the wound more deeply. He has bought us time." Gimli kneels, touching the scar. "It feels cold," he says. "Not like ice, like forgetting." Legolas looks eastward. "We must go," he says. "His sacrifice will be for nothing if we falter here." They go. The story of the ring unfolds in many ways as it did before. Frodo and Sam go to Mordor. Aragorn claims his kingship. The battles of Helm's Deep and the Pelennor are fought. Sauron is overthrown. The ring is destroyed. But there are differences. Without Gandalf's guiding hand after Moria, some choices are harder. Denethor falls deeper into despair. Theoden takes longer to throw off Wormtongue's shadow. The cost in lives is higher. Yet in the end, the West prevails. The White Tree blooms again. Aragorn is crowned. On the day of his coronation, as he stands upon the walls of Minas Tirith, looking out over the fields of the Pelennor, he feels a faint tremor under his feet. It is not an earthquake. It is a twinge, an ache in the bones of the world. He looks north toward the misty mountains. "Will it hold?" he asks quietly. Elrond, standing beside him, follows his gaze. "For a time," he says. "Gandalf's sacrifice bound it more tightly. The songs we wove, the strength we spent, have wrapped it in cords of meaning. It will not rise swiftly." Aragorn's jaw tightens. "But not forever," he says. Elrond's eyes are sad. "Nothing in Arda is forever," he replies. "Not even its wounds." In Lothlorien, Galadriel prepares to depart. The time of the elves is ending. The ring is gone. The three lose their power. The golden wood will fade. She stands by the river, her white dress brushing the water. Celeborn comes to her side. "Will you go?" he asks. She nods. "My work here is done," she says. "Others must tend what remains." She looks eastward to the mountains. "I feel it still," she says. "A dull ache, a place where the world is thin, but it does not scream as it once did. It is scarred." Celeborn takes her hand. "Will the scar heal?" he asks. She shakes her head. "Not in this world," she says. "Perhaps beyond, in the final music. Perhaps then even this absence will be woven into a greater beauty, but that is not for us to see." She turns away, walking toward the waiting ships. In the Blue Mountains, an old dwarf named Bifrak sits by a fire. He is very old now, his beard thin, his hands gnarled. Around him, young dwarves listen as he tells stories of Khazad-dûm. He speaks of the great pillars, of the echoing halls, of the sound of hammers. He speaks of Durin's crown of stars reflected in Kheled Zaram. He falters. There is a gap in his mind. He frowns, trying to recall the exact curve of a staircase, the pattern of runes on a certain door, the name of a friend who died in the deeps. it will not come. He sighs. Remember this, at least, he says to the children. We were there. We made great works. We loved our halls. We lost them, but we did not lose ourselves. We walked away. We carried what we could in our hearts. One of the children, a girl with bright eyes, raises her hand. Grandfather, she asks, is it true that there is a place under the mountain where nothing is? Bifrac's hand trembles. Yes, he says softly. There is a wound there, a scar. It is held closed by songs you will never hear, by a wizard who will never come to your door. It hungers, but it is chained. The girl shivers. Will it ever get out? She asks. Bifrac looks into the fire. I do not know, he says. I will not live to see it one way or the other. Perhaps your grandchildren's grandchildren will feel the ground tremble someday. Perhaps they will not. But listen to me, little one. He leans forward. Even if the world cracks, he says, even if the stone itself forgets its name, you must remember yours. You must remember that you were here, that you loved and worked and sang, that you mattered. That is how you fight the dark that eats meaning. You remember? She nods solemnly. Far to the east, under the roots of the misty mountains, the scar sleeps. It is a vast, curved cavity, a region where the laws of the world are strained. Its boundary shimmers faintly, like heat over snow. The stone around it bears the marks of stress, of cracks healed and rehealed by slow pressure. At its very heart, a single point of light glows. It is small. It is the last echo of Gandalf's staff, the last ember of his song. It burns quietly, holding the unmaking at bay, anchoring it in place. Around it, the hunger waits. It does not think. It does not plan. It simply is what it is. Above, seasons turn. Trees grow and fall. Kingdoms rise and fade. Men forget the details of the wound under the mountain. Elves sail west, taking their deep songs with them. Dwarves tell stories that grow vaguer with each generation. The scar remains. It is a reminder that the world is not whole. That there are cracks even the Valar cannot fully mend. That beyond the beauty of Arda, beyond the wars and loves and labors of its peoples, there is a silence that longs to make all things still. Yet there is also a light, small and stubborn, that refuses. In the end, when the last day comes and the final music is played, perhaps Ilúvatar will take even this fragment of the void and weave it into a theme so deep that all who hear it will weep for joy. Until then, under the forgotten halls of Khazad-dûm, in the dark that is not quite empty, the world holds its breath. And in a place where nothing should be, a single fading spark remembers why it burns.